Now, I told you Bitcoin was going to go back and test lows and take them out. It's doing that now. Bitcoin got rejection at the 50 period. The stock market, S&P, is now getting rejection at the 50 period. It's following Bitcoin's lead. Told you I was bearish, going down to support. We dropped. Let me just bring it up here. 19.25%. We couldn't break this level. It's bullish. We were going to get a bounce. Either go to the moving averages and get rejection or try to go up to the upper channel. We couldn't clear the 50. We got rejection at the 50. Back to bullish with the rebound. With rejection at the 20, we took out the 10. And again, we're likely going down to a new low to test our 20 period and maybe take it out. Back to bearish. You can bottom down here surrounding our 100 period moving average. We are coming down to the 100 period and trying to bounce right now. Could take it out. There is a possibility of this bull flag right here. And again, talked about a divergence developing coming down to this 100 period moving average. And again, we still may overthrow it right now from yesterday's close. Currently, we're Tuesday session. Monday, we try to rebound back up. The rebound was 1.16%, and then we've dropped right now 5.16%, but we were down almost 7.5% at the lows from yesterday's close. We dropped 7.5%. We're trying to rebound off that 100 period. Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average, as I've said. We may violate it and then bounce back up, or you may bounce off of it. But if you close below it, can't get back above it, that would be very, very bearish. We've come back to the support zone here, and again, we're trying to bounce in this area right here from these lows back over here and back over here. This is where we tried to bounce before, and I told you if we take this level out, again, we've got critical mass in the weekly time frame, but right here, we're hitting a key level of support. We may breach it and still bounce, but if we take it out and stay below it, then that's going to be very, very bearish. So, and again, because you'll be getting a lower high and a lower low, and then holding below the 100 period moving average. So again, the 100 period moving average is key here. We'll be watching to see if we can rebound. We're going to get the Fed tomorrow. Maybe by the time you hear this, we'll be getting that Fed announcement. Again, the Fed has been coming off hawkish. We'll be watching to see what the market does. He is reversing off of the 50 period moving average, just as Bitcoin did previously here. It is following Bitcoin. The S&P 500 reversed off the 50 period, just as Bitcoin did. Bitcoin peaked. Right after that, we saw the S&P peak. Bitcoin dropped down to the 100 period moving average, and that's what we're seeing the S&P do. Here, it came towards it just as Bitcoin did. Bitcoin's currently at it. The S&P is likely moving towards that 100 period moving average. Eventually, if the S&P can bottom out or, get another leg down and form a divergence and come back eventually try to fill this gap at 5,200, again, Bitcoin may try to have that bull flag play out if we don't drop below the 100 period moving average and stay below it with Bitcoin. 100 period moving average is key. I said in my last update, Bitcoin closed below the 10-week moving average. It attempted to do it a couple of times and was not able to close below it. We dipped below it, but we didn't close below it. Now we're closing below it. And here, again, that could take us, now we're hitting horizontal support, our 100 period, that could take us down to the 20-week moving average. Currently, Bitcoin's down 4% for the week, and as I said, for the session, down nearly 6%, but it had been down nearly 7.5% at the lows of the session. Our 20-week moving average is currently at the the high 55,000 area, right around the 55,700 area. So again, just below 56,000. And if we go down further, that's what I'll be watching is that 20-week moving average. It bounce, counting our 100-day, which is, we're hitting it right now. We're trying to bounce off of it. What we're watching is, does Bitcoin attempt to rebound? And if it does it go to a higher high and have the thing fail? Or do we, now have a lower high, lower low, and we start dropping below the 100 period and start getting a bigger drop? Or below the 10-week, do we stay below the 10-week like we did over here and start getting a bigger drop? Do we have a topping process here, or do we get a legitimate breakout and push back up? I've talked about the reasons over and over why a breakout here is problematic based on a couple of different indicators. I talked about it in my last 2 or 3 updates. I just want to, again, focus that if we remain below the 10-week and it starts curling over, then again, you lose that 100 period, you lose the 20-week moving average here in the weekly time frame. That's going to be bearish. You bounce off these levels, you get back above the 10-week, that's going to be bullish. Again, the breakouts, as I talked about, have always broken out when we move to new highs, except right here. And we tried it once and twice, and it failed, and then we dropped 52%, tried to rebound, and then we dropped 63% from the lower high that's set up. Dropping 78% in totality from the high. And watching to see, do we attempt a legitimate breakout here? We've had now 3 failed attempts, or do we get a reversal here? Does a reversal give us a lower high, lower low? Or is it more like the tops that formed over here, as I've talked about, where you get a peak, a rebound, a higher high, a peak, a sell-off, a rebound, and a higher high? Here we had a lower high, at least so far. Bull flag plays out surrounding the 100 period moving average. Then Bitcoin very well could try to make a higher high, but still have the thing fail and have it look something like these other tops over here. If we get a legitimate breakout, you got to break above this line right here, 69,000, stay above it, never look back, hold above that level. That's the bullish scenario. Far, the bullish scenario is now played out in that we've gotten rejection 3 times now at 69,000. Testing the 100 period moving average, and again, we may move beyond it, but we are still seeing the Moonboy oscillator still pointing down, still going lower. I'll be watching to see if it tries to find a bottom anytime soon. The last bottom we had was in January. It did mark a divergence at the January top back over here, and then it marked the January bottom, which was at the 100 period moving average. Talking about this video. Prior to that, it did mark the September bottom correctly and the July top. So again, I'll be watching the Moonboy oscillator still pointing down. But again, if we try to form a bottom, it may reach extremes and try to recycle back up or turn back up if we try to rebound off of that 100 period moving average in the daily time frame. And Bitcoin continues to have a bearish reversal of conditions. Most signals are bearish, and again here we have momentum bearish and we have the trend bearish, and again being validated, being in negative territory, now rolling back over. So again, watching to see what happens as we're testing right now the 100 period moving average. Not only is Bitcoin testing the 100-day moving average in the daily time frame, it's also testing VWAP support here from this low that we had, which was the last test of the 100 period moving average, mind you, which if you watch a video all the way through you will see. Now below that, if we break this area, again, we'll have that 200 period moving average in the daily time frame, and then we also have the VWAP support going all the way back to the lows over here. So again, the last 2 lows, the one over here, the one over here, the higher low here, these 2 lows are the VWAP support. Now again, right now we're testing it. We're testing the 100 period moving average. So, and there's a trend line directly below, which again I'll talk about later in the video here. From this level here to this level here, directly below the 100 period moving average. So again, we're at VWAP support. Now, just like the S&P 500, Bitcoin had already turned off the VWAP resistance. S&P is doing it right now. And again, the VWAP resistance from this lower high that's set up and from the higher high over here, these 2 levels acted as resistance right here, and we've come back to VWAP support. So again, watching VWAP support and the 100 period moving average on Bitcoin. Again, that is VWAP support from the last time we hit the 100 period moving average this low right over here. A major level of support at this level, VWAP support at our 100-day moving average. Just want to point out to you, we still have a bearish reversal of conditions with Bitcoin. Again, we peaked over here, we got a lower high, then we came down and we tried to break out of a triangle that ended up failing, and then we broke down below the lower end of the triangle, and we came down and we got another bearish reversal of conditions. This is Bitcoin futures, and again, Bitcoin's getting rejection at the 20 period moving average with the Bitcoin price, and here with the Bitcoin futures as well, we're getting rejection at that 20 period moving average. We could form a divergence here on the Awesome Oscillator, and try to bottom surrounding the 100 period, or go a little bit below it and try to bottom. But it's also possible that we remain below it and that we remain in negative territory at the Awesome Oscillator. We see the bars go deeper, and that would suggest a bigger sell-off. So again, watching that 100 period moving average very closely, we tried to rally up off of horizontal support right here, and again, it failed. Moving averages couldn't flip back to a bullish reversal of conditions. You see the same thing here with IBIT, the Bitcoin ETF. Again, we remain in a bearish reversal of conditions. We remain below the 50-period moving average. Is what I'm watching for in the weekly time frame is to see if we close the week out with a bearish reversal of conditions. And if we do, then again, we can go down and test that 20-week moving average and get a bigger drop. Or do we try to rebound off of that 100 period? The 100 period moving average is really the line in the sand for Bitcoin. It does follow that 100 period moving average, as I continue to talk about. Here we've had red awesome oscillator bars in the weekly time frame, and we're seeing price turn down and now come back to support here. So again, I'll be watching to see if we close the week out with a bearish reversal of conditions. We have to close the month out, but there's now the monthly session is wrapping up right now, and for the month, the Bitcoin price is down nearly 15%, 14.97%. Bitcoin has lost all of the gains from the previous month, and it's dropped $10,675. So it's given back all those gains. I told you I was going to be watching to see what kind of monthly bar we get. I was watching to see if we get a topping tail before the month ended, and we did not get it. Something like that, or like that, where we turned down and came back up. And again, we ended up closing. We had attempted to rebound. I told you it was possible we get a hanging man, or kind of some kind of OG or something like that. We rallied up to that 20 and the 50 period, and we got rejection. Bitcoin's lost 15%, and we've given back all the gains from the previous month. And again, these 2 big months higher. So again, I was watching. So if we start to turn and this high holds, we got to drop below that 100-day moving average in the daily time frame and then remain below it. There is still the possibility of rebound surrounding the 100-period moving average, but Bitcoin losing 15% for the month. Again, Bitcoin follows a 100-period moving average. We've come down to it. We're trying to get a bounce off of it right now. We may take it out and then bounce back up above it, or you may drop below it and hold below it. If we drop below it and the 20 period, this little blue line right here, drops below the 100 period moving average, then again, you're either going to go sideways like over here, or you're going to go down like over here. Okay, so again, the 100 period is really, really important. If we start getting a decisive break below the 100 period, it means we're either going sideways or we're going down. That's what it means. If we bounce off this area or dip below it and then get right back above it, here we dip below it, got right back above it. Here we got above it and then fell right back below it. And you get these moves where kind of overthrow it like we did over here and over here. But again, if we stay below it, drop below it and stay below it, that's bearish. If you bounce off of it, that's bullish. If you drop below it and the 20-day moving average drops below it, then that's really bearish. And when we had it happen over here, we were going sideways. When we had it happen over here, we were going down. 20 stayed consistently below the 100 period until, except for this rebound, which was a fake out, and it quickly ended up failing, and we dropped back below the 100 period, and the 20 dropped back below the 100 period. So again, I'm watching the 100 period. Now, in order to get a bigger sell-off, we've got to drop below the 100 period, and the parameters got to go into the negative region. It's not in the negative region. Over here, we dropped below the 100 period, and it was followed by parameter going negative and the 20 dropping below. So if that happens, we can get a bigger sell-off. But it's also possible if we try to bounce off of it, you have a bull flag, and you can still form a breakout that will take us to higher levels, as I've talked about. And again, get a legitimate breakout or a topping process, one or the other. But you lose this area and you stay below it, that's going to be very, very bearish and start validating a lower high, lower low for Bitcoin. Bounce off this area, that's going to be very bullish. Right now, we're trying to bounce off the 100 period moving average. We'll see if we break it. If we do break it, you got this trend line right below it. This is going back here to October. And again, you've got this trend line right there. And again, that trend line and the 100 period are support. You break those levels, okay, you break the 100, you break the trend line, then you've got horizontal support down here and our 200 period moving average. So that's where the support levels are. We bounce right here, then you got a shot at that bull flag playing out and taking Bitcoin up to a new high. See the stock market try to form a bottom and eventually go back up and try to move to fill the gap at 5,200 or even move to a new high. From a negative divergence on the RSI, we could see the same negative divergence develop on Bitcoin on the RSI in the weekly time frame. Are you picking up what I'm throwing down? Again, this area separates the bulls from the bears. If we bounce here, go a little bit lower, hit the trend line and bounce, get back above the 100, extremely bullish. You bounce out the 100 here and you don't drop below it, that's bullish. You break these levels, that's extremely bearish. And again, break them and cannot get back above them. Now, the RSI is not down at extremes yet. We didn't reach extremes down here. And again, the last time we hit the 100 period, we've slightly violated it and we bounced off of it. Here, let me just zoom out here for a second here. We sold off from the July high, and down here, we formed a bull flag, broke the trend line, got back above that 100 period. And again, the correction, we dropped below it, we got back above it, and then here we pulled back to it. Now here we're at it again. The 100 period is very important to Bitcoin. Bitcoin follows the 100 period moving average. I want to show you this because, again, talking about the 100 period, I talked about the cloud of support and the 100 period moving average. Now we're violating the cloud and we're trying to bounce off the 100 period right below it. Let me just bring up the trend lines here. Let me bring up the 200. Right below it, you have this trend line right here. You have that 200 period. And then if we go back further to the low there in September, you got another trend line that goes beyond the 200 period back to the 40,000 area, right around 42,000 or so, maybe higher if we try to reach that level in the coming months ahead. But again, do we bounce or do we break and lose this area? The cloud is turning red into the future. So again, if we lose the cloud, we lose the 100 period, we lose the trend line, that's bearish. You bounce off these levels, that's bullish. We're going to have the Fed meeting. We'll be watching to see, is the market, Bitcoin, have a negative reaction to the Fed? We get a relief rally back up off of these levels of support. Bitcoin break these levels in the coming days ahead. Now, I told you at the 72, 73,000 area, I told you we were going to roll over and go back and get a sell-off. We got about an 18% sell-off immediately within 2 weeks. We rebounded back up. We got a lower high, and this divergence on indicators began to form. I told you, again, we were going to likely test support at the 60,000 area because our triangle failed to break out. We talked about that at great length and detail. Here we have a rollover. It's giving us a sell-off, which now we've dropped 19.25% down to new fresh lows. I'll be watching to see if we get some traction here. Form a multiple diversions here. Try to get a divergence developing on things like the RSI, the oscillator. Break, again, the 100 period and the trend line, then you're going to get a bigger sell-off. But again, I talked about the rebound off of the 60,000 area. Rejection off the 50, and I told you my last update, 2 updates ago, we got rejection off the 20, just below the 50, and then again, my last update, signals were turning back to bearish, so I told you we were going to get another low. The likelihood turn back to bearish. My guess is Bitcoin's likely in a topping process, something like what we had over here, something like what we had over here. If that's with a lower high, we're going to take out that 100 period moving average. If we see the bull flag play out, then again, we need to go back up in order for the pattern to play out. And then we'll be watching the RSI to see if it forms a negative divergence in the weekly time frame. Now, once again, I've talked about this channel on Bitcoin, and again, we went right up to it, we overthrew it, and we got rejection there. Again, if we go higher, we could hit that upper channel again and then turn back down and form a divergence. But there's still the possibility of a lower high, lower low if we lose the 100 period moving average. And again, if we see indicators begin to turn back up, you can form divergences on some indicators. Here we've had divergences at most of the turns, not all of them, but most of them. We didn't see it in this area, but all the rest of the levels in the recent years, we have seen divergences. We don't have to form a divergence, and we didn't get a divergence down over here either, or here. some tops, the bottom over here, and these other tops over here, you had it. So it doesn't have to form a divergence, but it certainly could. So I'm watching that 100 period moving average. It separates the bulls from the bears. It really does. And again, you can see it one more time right here, just the 100 by itself. When you're below it and it fails, or you're below it, again, consistently below, bad stuff's happening. Get back above it, good stuff. When you're jumping up and down above and below it, you're going sideways. When you get back above it, good stuff's happening. Here we bounced off of it. Here we are again. So do we break it? Or do we bounce? Do we break it and then bounce? We just break it. We'll be watching. I told you on the 4-hour chart, again, to be watching to see what happens with the bounce. Again, does it get rejection at the 200? Did it get rejection at the 50? Daily, we got rejection at those levels in both of those time frames. We had the bullish divergence give us the bounce, but it was just a counter trend. And again, then we lost a 50, we lost a 10 period in the daily, we lost a 50 here in the 4-hour time frame. And again, now you're dropping down further and you're below the cloud, you're below the 50 is rolling over, still below the 200. This is bearish stuff. That's taken us back to our 100 period moving average. So we'll be watching to see what happens there. And again, we'll be watching to see, does another divergence develop here? We go lower, or do we start just breaking that 100 period and staying below it? The pring parameter was likely going to form a divergence here. And again, we're moving down to a new low slightly below this level here. And again, a divergence is developing. So again, you could bottom surrounding the 100 period moving average. You get a divergence here completing in the 4-hour time frame. If I zoom out on the 4-hour time frame, again, we had that failed breakout of the triangle. It broke down. And again, now we're seeing this break below the 200 period, and then we back tested it, and now we're moving to a new low. Pring parameters moved into negative territory. It could form a bullish divergence, try to form a bottom surrounding the 100-day moving average in the daily time frame. The Bitcoin is above the 200. Pring parameters positive, in positive territory. Good things are happening. Okay, when Bitcoin drops below the 200 and pring parameter goes negative, bad things are happening. Like over here, the correction that we had in January. So if Bitcoin's going to go higher, it's got to get back above the 200 period. Then the 50's got to get back above the 200 period. So price and the 50 have both got to get back above the 200. Pring parameter has to go back in positive territory. Bitcoin got that big sell-off with Microstrategy. We get a big decline for the session of 17.63%, a sharp drop, and losing the 50 period. Microstrategy has a positive correlation with Bitcoin because of the huge exposure to Bitcoin that they have. Just made another big purchase. That must mean that Bitcoin is bottomed and we're just going to go and off to the races. Not necessarily. They dollar cost average, and again, they buy going up, they buy going down. So you can clearly see here, buy going up, buy going down, and again, they bought tops. They have bought tops. Bought a top right there, and again for the lower high, and they bought bottoms. They dollar cost average it, and again, massive position. So again, the conventional wisdom is, oh, MicroStrategy is buying, so there must be a Bitcoin bottom here, and that is not necessarily the case. It does have a positive correlation with Bitcoin, so we should be paying very close attention to it, but you got to wonder, they'll keep buying, should it go down or top out, eventually top out, go make a higher high, but it can't get a successful breakout. It ends up filling at 69,000. But if we end up reversing the lower high or a divergence, you got to wonder if they're still going to dollar cost average on the way down. But I found it interesting. Again, MicroStrategy buys tops and they buy bottoms. They dollar cost average. So again, keep in mind, recently they bought the top, and now as we're pulling back here, they're trying to buy more, or they have bought more.